All right, good Monday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Becca Birdsall, and for the very own Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, who is out this evening, but we'll be back at 11 o'clock tonight to give you that latest forecast. In the meantime, I will be hosting this weather show coming up with our partners at WFMY with Tim Buckley. We have some quiet weather to talk about, but getting a little bit more active, especially over towards the East Coast. So a lot to talk about. We'll actually take you live outside. This is across the Carolinas. We've been spoiled with some very calm weather for the past 9 days. That's the last time that we have seen measurable rainfall here in the greater Charlotte area. We are starting to see a few downpours over towards the high country, drift down to the south, but overall making way for a nice dry evening in the Charlotte area. Live view from our Mr. Sparky Carolina Cam network. Over towards Beach Mountain, this is where we do have a light downpour starting to fall through, again pushing down to the south. You can see those wet streets out there, those darker clouds. This is the time of the year where we do want to start to see more consistent rainfall, especially as we get closer to that fall foliage season. Of course, that is one of the ingredients needed to see the best colors. Doppler radar, this is what we're looking at now. Most of the showers have actually drifted south out of the viewing area, especially west of Shelby, especially over towards Asheville, between Hickory and Asheville there on I-40, but just have a few lingering downpours pushing out of Ashe County now into Avery and Watauga. Got one lone downpour over towards Boone, again pushing down to the south, but most of this action is weakening out as it starts to drift down to the south area. Satellite and radar, we do have that coastal low pressure system still producing some significant rainfall over towards the East Coast. That counterclockwise spin of that low pressure system, that's what's bringing in the clouds and the tropical moisture here in the Carolinas, again, especially over towards the East Coast, but this is rainfall that we all could use statewide, and it's kept a lid on temperatures. If you went outside today, maybe for a walk or a run, you may have noticed that we did have some high clouds enter through the area, so that did make way for some filtered sunshine, and expect temperatures to cool down over the next several days as well. Outside now, 81 in Charlotte, 76 in Lincoln, 64 in Boone, and 79 as you step outdoors over towards Lancaster. This evening overall should be nice, rain-free across the greater Charlotte area. 9 p.m. falling into the lower 70s by around 11 o'clock, starting to fall into the upper 60s with low temperatures tonight, upper 50s to lower 60s. Yesterday, or actually I should say this morning, we fell down to about 63, so very seasonable for this time of year. Will be just a little bit cooler than that as we go into tonight. So weather impacts, we are going to be cooling down tomorrow into Wednesday as we continue to see some small rain chances and a few clouds as well. Friday, though, going to be heating up with temperatures near 90. We're also looking ahead for the tropics as well as our next tropical depression or storm is expected to form over the coming days. Tomorrow afternoon, expect those high temperatures to remain into the middle to upper 70s across the metro area and upper 60s for the high country. We are on the fall countdown. It is 7 days away from the official start of astronomical fall, where the average highs range from 81 degrees to about 54. And it is going to be feeling like fall as we go into your Tuesday, but feeling a little bit more like summer, ending out the work week. Live view outside, you can see those high clouds making way for some filtered sunshine. Dew points have also been in the 50s. So the lower the dew point, the more comfortable the air is, the drier the air is. So even with the extra cloud cover, today has overall been comfortable. It hasn't really felt humid or muggy as you step outdoors. It was a very seasonable day today. We had a high temperature of 84 degrees. That was 1 degree above the normal high for this time of year, which is about 83, and then was right on par with that low temperature of 63. So here's that service map. We've got that non-tropical coastal low pressure system sitting just offshore of the Outer Banks, and that's where the majority of the rain has been throughout the day. This will continue to drift up to the north, eventually weakening out, going towards the end of the work week. But for now, so it's bringing the showers all across Ashe, Watauga, and Avery counties. Haven't seen a drop of rain in the greater Charlotte area. Starting to see one downpour set up over towards Salisbury in Rowan County, but since the air is so dry, I don't imagine imagine that is making it to the ground. Again, the main coverage has been over towards Boone, Roaring Creek, extending down over towards Morganton, but most of the heavy rain that we've been seeing over the past couple of hours has pushed south out of the viewing area. We'll carry about a 20 to 30% chance for a few passing showers tomorrow, but rain chances have really gone down for Wednesday as well, just not looking nearly as impressive. And we'll end out the work week with dry conditions, still warming up though. And then we'll carry a small risk for a few light showers going into your Saturday and Sunday as well. Tomorrow, expect a cloudy, cooler day with on and off showers, especially for the second half of the day with high temperatures, middle to upper 70s. Here's what the next 36 hours looks like on that surface map. We've got that low pressure system lifting up to the north, bringing lots of rainfall to the east coast. Like I mentioned, does weaken out for the second half of the work week, but is going to bring some pretty significant wind gusts, especially over towards places like the Outer Banks alongside the east coast. As this continues to push up to the north, they have had a wind gust in the Outer Banks 30 to over 40 miles per hour, as well as blowing sand. They've had some pretty harsh conditions today. So this will continue to drift up to the north, bringing with it some heavy downpours as well as some strong wind gusts, and eventually weaken out as we go into your Thursday and Friday. Today we've had wind gusts between 15 to 20 miles per hour. We'll carry that into tomorrow, but we're so far inland that's really going to be the main impact we see. There is a flood watch that goes until Tuesday night. This extends portions of Raleigh, but mainly eastward into Norfolk, all the way down into that northern half of the North Carolina coast. This is going to be for localized amounts of rainfall between 2 to 3 inches. Again, this is going to be isolated and localized and not going to be something that the Charlotte area has to deal with. So no flood watch for us. And we will be lucky to get in on a fraction of that rainfall. In fact, totaling it all up from now all the way through early Wednesday morning, some locations will have a chance to pick up 2/10 of an inch, but other locations will be lucky to get a few hundredths of an inch. So those are the expectations that you have to go through going into the next several days. And like I mentioned, it's been quite a while since we've seen measurable rainfall. So this is rain that we certainly could use. Futurecast going into this evening, few light showers possible. And then going into tomorrow morning, it will be a dry start. And then here comes the afternoon. We've got more passing showers starting to stream through, probably ramping up towards that evening and nighttime hours. We'll carry a risk for rain through the overnight hours on Wednesday. But notice Wednesday morning, afternoon, all the way through the evening hours, really stay dry. That's why rain chances really have gone drastically down from that 20 to 30% chance we had over the weekend. Checking in on the September rainfall, of course, we are entering mid-September. Hard to believe. We picked up close to 2 inches of rainfall about 10 days ago. This is where we picked up 1.97 inches. The average for the month of September is 3.71. So we're not terribly far off from that. It's just we haven't seen consistent rainfall from week to week. So this is something that we could use. We will take any rainfall that we can get. Temperatures cooling off tomorrow. We'll start to warm up as we get a little bit more sunshine going into your Wednesday, highs in the lower 80s, and then right back up going into Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, especially Friday, upper 80s. I think even a few locations could brush 90 degrees, especially in our South Carolina counties. The average time that we hit our last 90-degree day is September 12th. Over the last 5 years, it's kind of fluctuated from mid to late September. So the latest 90-degree day we've had was October 13th in 1954. So we could very well get close to hitting that coming Friday. But of course, September is that transition month where we typically see temperatures go up and down, and the temperature outlook continues to trend warm as well. Dew points will fluctuate 50s to 60s over the coming week ahead as well. But we will go ahead and end this out with introducing our chief meteorologist, Tim Buckley. Tim, I'm having issues with my IFB here, so I apologize, but it is good to see you. We have not worked here together yet on this stream, so we are making our debut, and I hope your Monday is off to a good start.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Becca. I hope everything's been going well in Charlotte today. Up here, we're awaiting and hoping and praying that there's some rain. because it's been dry for like 9 days, I guess. It's been kind of the best weather of the year to me. It's been super comfortable for a while. But, a lot of people are chirping that we could use some rain. The grass is dry and the flowers are dying, so we need some help. We're hoping for some showers tomorrow up around here. You probably won't get that many down in Charlotte, I'm guessing.
Very minimal rain chances for tomorrow. We'll take anything that we can get. It was a nice sight to see some rain showers on the radar over towards the mountains, especially over towards western North Carolina, as this is the time of the year where we need consistent rainfall for the best fall foliage colors, which, of course, will start to peak in a couple of weeks. It's hard to believe that we are entering mid-September now.
It's flying by, and it's funny you mentioned that too, because I was actually just getting a little worried about that this morning. Just taking a walk around here in our Triad area, I go to some parks most mornings, and there's been a lot of trees even around here that have kind of been dropping their leaves, and we know about heat stress and drought stress, and I know you did a great weather IQ about this, but some of the leaves that were falling, they're not even turned colors. They're kind of just greenish. So I'm hoping that was an isolated case and not something that'll be a little bit more widespread, but definitely want to keep an eye on that as we get closer to the peak. How is that rainfall doing for us? And I guess part of the reason is we've had such a quiet tropical season. There's not really been much rainfall to head our way in the Carolinas.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And fall is 7 days away. Hard to believe that as well. And we'll continue to update that fall foliage forecast. Of course, there's a lot of factors that go into the colors that you see, especially in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we're hoping for a great fall foliage season as lots of roads and interstates begin to reopen. I know one road did reopen today, part of the Blue Ridge Parkway. I believe it was connecting Mount Mitchell to Asheville, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was huge. They're kind of doing chunk by chunk. They're going the best that they can. But as I understand it, Becca, they had a big landslide issue somewhere along that chunk between Mount Mitchell and Asheville. It's about a 25-mile chunk, but it includes really popular spots. You haven't been able to get to Mount Mitchell for about a year. Now you can. And that's also the Craggy Gardens area, which people love to see. It's just a really beautiful vista close to Asheville, too. So about 25 miles, that's a big deal. And there's still some ways to go. There's some parts of the parkway that probably won't open until next year, but every bit counts. And to do it before the 1-year anniversary and before peak fall color, I think that's something to be celebrated. So a big win in western North Carolina. We hope to see some more of that coming up.
Especially, I hope that encourages people to actually take whatever it is, maybe a day trip or a weekend trip up towards the high country and, of course, support those local businesses. Speaking of Hurricane Helene and the tropics, today marks a special anniversary because it was this day 7 years ago, or I believe this September 14th, 7 years ago, when Hurricane Florence made landfall over towards Wrightsville Beach. And I believe you worked close to that market. Was it during that time, and can you talk a little bit more about that?
Florence was so bad. Yeah, it was really difficult. And Jeb, you can take this graphic I have anytime you want to, but we can show you kind of the path that Florence took. Very unusual storm. It was one of these hurricanes that, like many of the bad Carolina hurricanes do, it formed really, really far out there, pretty close to Africa. And I zoomed you out a little bit too quickly. Let me back up on this. But we call these the Cape Verde hurricanes when they form way out there by the Cape Verde Islands. And this thing was a storm that we tracked for, it seemed like weeks and weeks, but it got very far north in the Atlantic, very far away from us. And Becca, I remember tracking this. I was here in Greensboro at the time, but my first market was Wilmington, and so always watching the coast pretty closely. I remember thinking, we haven't seen a storm get that far north before and hit us. So history was saying we didn't have to worry about it. But the tropical high was so strong that it just kept pushing it off to the west. And eventually it took a really direct track inland. And if you see how close all of those icons are together, they're all spaced out equally at different intervals. It slowed to a halt. And so I think what people will remember about Florence is the rainfall and the rainfall was so punishing and so terrible because it was so slow. And we've had a couple of those hurricanes in recent history. Harvey in Texas is one that comes to mind, where it just parked itself. And Florence was one of those that, talking to people that lived through it, it was suffocating. I mean, even if you were doing okay, you couldn't go anywhere. It was super loud with the wind. There's the flooding issue. This thing was there for days and days on end. And I think the maximum rainfall was about 30 to 35 inches. Wilmington did gust up to 105 miles per hour. It got downgraded to a Category 1 right before landfall. But, as we say, it's not always good to focus on the category all that much because the impacts were enormous. They were just cut off from civilization for days on end. It was a period of time where it was effectively an island in southeast North Carolina. I remember people couldn't get in or out. Our crews were hunkered down there for a long time. Lots of stories to tell, but it was a bad one. And Becca, Brad and I were talking about this last week. It seems like this time of year, every couple of days you have a big hurricane anniversary in North Carolina. Tomorrow, I think, is the anniversary of Floyd. But we're looking at some video here of Florence. And what do you remember from this storm? Because to me, it was the flooding that was such, the story.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was actually in college in Texas. I think it was my junior year of school. So I don't have fresh memories from this, but I talked to Larry Sprinkle when I came in today and asked him what he remembered of Hurricane Florence. And the thing that came to mind was, of course, flooding. 22 fatalities, I believe, is what he also mentioned as well. But he was also saying how they were, live doing full wall-to-wall coverage throughout the entirety of that storm, which kind of tells you how, especially during that time, how severe everything was going on. But he also said something else. He said, obviously, he's been here for 40 years at WCNC, and he said there have been so many significant September storms that it's kind of hard to remember all of them. Like you were saying, it seems like every other day we're focusing on an anniversary of a tropical system, and that's what made me get reminded of that as well.
Well, it was a huge deal. And, Carolina hurricane history, we think of them, a lot of them as being long and long ago. We've had a lot of them in recent years that will stand the test of time, from Florence to Helene. You have Matthew on the list. A lot of these aren't that long ago, but they stack up with the worst of them in Carolina history. So we've definitely been in a pretty active period. I'm thankful that this year hasn't been so far, but, we still have a little bit to go. And as we kind of say goodbye to Florence, we'll talk a little bit about Floyd tomorrow, I'm sure, and kind of what made that storm unique. But interestingly enough, today, it's not a tropical system per se, but we do have a coastal low that's been creating some issues up in the Outer Banks with, a little bit of rainfall, but just gusty winds and high surf and some issues up there. I know Highway 12 has been having some problems. So it's not tropical per se, but there's been more weather on the ocean that's always keeping our friends on our toes up that way. And I know we have Sam Walker up in the Outer Banks who's been keeping an eye on things for us. If we have him now, we can kind of bring him in to a little discussion about this.
Hey, Tim. How you doing?
Hey, Sam. Good to see you. So I got you clear. As long as you can hear me, we're good to go. Yep. Not a lot of fanfare with this system in the days leading up to it, but a pesky coastal low can cause some issues in your part of the world. Can you tell us a little bit about, what's been going on and what do you know about that big modular home that got messed up on the Bazinet Bridge?
Yeah, hey, you can't park there. We'll talk about that in a moment, but, it's typical fall, winter. It's felt like that since August, really. Since the 1st of August out here, we've just been in this constant, almost northeast blow, it feels like. I can't remember a day where we really didn't have a northeast wind since the beginning of August. And once again, we get a stalled front offshore, and another low just decides to form on it. And this one's pretty potent. It's the classic non-tropical low nor'easter. And it's brought us quite a bit of northeast winds. We saw gusts to 60 miles an hour earlier today at Jeanette's Pier, Nags Head, 59 in Duck. Anywhere from 35 to 60 has been where things have gone with this thing. And looking at those cameras you got pulled up right now, and it's interesting, the one in the top right, which is where the motels in Buxton are, just north of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. You can see water on Highway 12. And we had overwash today with high tide, which was around 3 o'clock. And the crazy part about it was, usually we talk about overwash with high tide around 1 to 2 hours when we have events like this. It started at 12. We got it 3 hours out, and we are 3 hours, almost 4 hours past high tide right now. And you can still see some of that ocean water on the roadway. Now, the other thing that's going on is down in Ocracoke. I don't think you got Ocracoke, but that's okay. We can talk about it in a moment. But if you look up in that top left, and I love that you've got the time lapse there, because all those vehicles, what's going on with all those vehicles just parked on Highway 12 in the Canal Zone, which is just south of the Bass Knight Bridge in Oregon Inlet? Well, earlier today, when the winds were howling at their worst, someone decided it was a good idea to haul 2 pieces of a modular home down to Hatteras Island. The first one made it across the bridge. I guarantee that was sketchy at 90 feet in the air. That's the clearance, so probably 110 feet over the surface of Oregon Inlet. But the second one did not make it. It got to the top of the bridge, at the top of the navigation span, which is the highest part of the bridge, again, about 110 feet over the water, and it got blown right off of the trailer that was pulling it. And it's been sitting there pretty much all afternoon. The tow truck company that was called out, they've been trying to get this thing uprighted, and it has just continued to sit there because the wind's blowing so hard. They finally got it uprighted, but they can't use the tow trucks can't lift their outriggers up that stabilize it, because if they do, they're scared it's going to blow right back over. So that's shut down Highway 12 from Hatteras Island and to Hatteras Island really for about 5 hours, and the backups are getting worse and worse because folks that either live on the island and have been off the island today to go to doctor's appointments, et cetera, or go to work, they've been sitting waiting, and that's what's been going on. But you can see that spin out there off of Hatteras. And yeah, does it look tropical? Oh, it definitely looks tropical, but it's not. We don't have a lot of time to talk about the scientific reasons, but it definitely looks and feels tropical out here today for sure.
Now, I do have a question because I've been seeing some videos of blowing sand. Is that something that you've been seeing as well, especially with those strong wind gusts?
Yeah, that is something that we are so used to. We call it the free exfoliations. If you want to go out on a beach walk today, not a good idea unless you really want to get that skin sandblasted. That's very typical of any time we get these storms, and especially at periods of low tide because the water is farther out, so there's more beach exposed. The sand dries out from all this high winds, and it blows, and it piles up in the oceanfront yards of houses. It piles up in pools. I guarantee you the pool company that I help out with sometimes, we're going to be doing some storm cleans tomorrow and pumping sand out of pools. But at the same time, it blows across the road. And you can get what in a snowstorm would be whiteout conditions. You get brownout conditions sometimes, or tan-out conditions when you're driving along Highway 12 on Hatteras Island and Ocracoke, because that wind just picks that sand up and blows, and you're driving through areas that have dunes that have been created by the DOT to help protect the highway that are 10, 15, 20 feet tall, and that sand can blow, and at night it is a very dangerous situation where you will lose all visibility and not be able to see while driving. And there have been times when they've had to close Highway 12, not because of overwash, not because of heavy rain, but because of blowing sand. So that's going to be an issue as we get into the evening hours and the overnight tonight, with these winds forecast to stay up at least through the middle of the night, in the sustained 30 with these higher gusts that could reach 50 miles an hour. So that's definitely going to be an issue tonight, especially on Hatteras and Ocracoke Islands.
So, Sam, we're kind of a while into this now. I guess today was, the worst day so far. What are you expecting going into tomorrow? Because it looks like this thing's going to put a good amount of rain down, gusty winds kind of continuing. There is a bit of a flash flood risk, not just for the Outer Banks, but also for Elizabeth City, Norfolk, all the way in eastern North Carolina. What should folks out in that area know if they're headed that way soon, or if they're there right now? What are kind of the things that you'd say, oh yeah, we're going to have this problem tomorrow?
Probably it's just going to be the wind, the rain, which we really need because we've gone back into D0, abnormally dry on the drought map this last 2 weeks. We could get some of those heavy showers. Amazing to see the lightning that's going on with that big cell that's parked offshore. If that were to move onshore, we could get a lot of rain in a short amount of time. So that might cause some travel issues along, as you get into interior sections of eastern North Carolina. Out here, we get heavy rain because it's sand. It goes in the water, stands for a little while, and it just gets absorbed. So it's not so much a problem out here when we call flash flooding here. It's a very different scenario than as you get inland. But we need the rain, really. The water table should be able to handle it, but, 2-3 inches in a short amount of time, that's a possibility. The gusty wind should start to die down tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then by Wednesday, things should start to clear out. Hopefully, of course, we thought we were going to be dry and in the 70s today and all this week. And, of course, you just never know when these things are going to blow up out there if you get another stalled front. So we'll just keep watching. But right now it looks like tonight's going to be the worst. I say earlier today was probably the worst, but tonight into tomorrow, and then things really start to calm down. It looks like it should be a decent back half of the work week.
All right, Sam, just got one last question as we wrap the day up. Wanted to ask you if you are seeing residents or any visitors out on the beach today and what you expect to see tomorrow as well.
Well, like I said earlier, if they're out there, they're wanting that free exfoliation. They need to get that skin all nice and glossy. So really not a lot. There are people that will go out there and brave it a little bit and then realize this was probably a mistake. Now, if they do go out there, one thing we need to be concerned with is the fact that you've got we haven't even talked about the surf. We're talking about surf. We had a high surf advisory, 5 to 10 foot breakers in the surf zone, and those run up to the dunes. That can easily knock somebody down. We've had tragedies in the past where people have got knocked down and hurt. We had a small child a couple of years ago from New Hampshire who was pulled out into the ocean and died. That's one concern. Obviously, swimming, forget it. Double red flags are up. It's not even, and nobody's surfing either in this stuff. It's not clean because it's an onshore wind, so it's really sloppy and choppy. So really, yeah, there have been a few people going out on the beach, but they've really been going out there maybe to get a picture or two. They're not from here. If we just call this Monday out here on the Outer Banks. We all went to work. We all went to school.